So, let me start with a confession myself. I never saw myself as a highly sensitive person. I was criticizing myself for being oversensitive. You might recognize that, right? It is actually only since recently that I started um, to own the fact that I'm highly sensitive and that actually there is not something wrong with it. Like Luann just said, I start to see it as a positive trait. That really took me some effort and some help from my loved ones to support me in that, to show me that it was okay, that I was what I called oversensitive. So, what do I mean with criticizing myself with oversensitivity? Well, I felt that I was very sensitive, very emotional, very quickly feeling things, picking up um, where others are at without exactly knowing what it is that is going on, but being so sensitive to that, taking it really, really personal. And I was blaming myself for being so sensitive. Why was I blaming myself? Well, I heard this a lot in my environment. Oh, you are so sensitive. We cannot say anything to you, and you will be sensitive. You are always so emotional. And actually, I heard this already from being really, really small. So I had this stigma in my head about experiencing emotions, which could be and still are intense, having feelings, being so empathic that you know already from a distance where that there is something going on with others without you actually knowing what it is, but you do feel it. And because you're so sensitive, you trying to get what it is, and then you think it's you because you are sensitive. Well, this kind of circular, not so healthy logic in your head, our minds, then our minds start to run with it. So for me, acknowledging that I'm highly sensitive and that it is actually okay um, was a big relief when I finally got to that place that I could say, well, this is it. And then something beautiful happens, because when you start to acknowledge that sensitivity, it doesn't make it per se easier, because you still feel a lot of things, but you start to take your feelings more seriously. And that is exactly what this life is about. It's about self-gentleness for sensitives and highly sensitives. And you might have seen between the brackets and who isn't, because let's face it, we as human beings, we are sensitive. We have feelings, we have emotions. However, we are living in a world where material success, toughness, pushing through, having targets and goals and going for them are the most important things. What do we teach our kids in school? To be gentle to themselves, to communicate, to be compassionate? No, we teach them to do this, to do this, to do this in time, to perform, to jump through all the hoops that we need to become this successful citizen. And while I'm not saying that there is anything wrong in that part, I also believe that there must be this part where we acknowledge that we are just humans. And humans are not just rational thinkers, doers who decide, this is the goal, here I'm going for, and this is where I will get. We are so much more than that. We are complex beings. We have minds that try to logic about things. We have minds that try to explain things to us with incomplete information. And then we feel all these things just in our bodies, things that we don't want to recognize. We have pain in our feet and we just keep going because we think that we don't have time to rest, or we feel that we have to sleep, but we do feel that we have to get to this appointment and that appointment to get all those things going. Instead of listening to the fact that our bodies are tired. Just a few things to mention. So this is in general for any human being, that I think we should and could acknowledge more that we are sensitives. And that sensitivity being able to feel, in our bodies, being able to feel other people, to connect with other people, to feel what that does to us. I think that is something that we don't spend enough time on. If you are a highly sensitive person, and that is actually about 20% of all people, which is a lot. 20% of all people are highly sensitive. And this basically means that the senses are more fine-tuned. So the way this manifests can be very different. There are people who have this really on their senses, who are unable to get too much stimuli in light or sounds or a lot of people around them, or just wearing a sweater where something is just not comfortable, not being able to deal with that. You might recognize that. Others have this highly sensitivity based more on the emotional part and the feelings. And very often it's a combination of that. And then, of course, that empathy, that feeling where others are, that something is there with others, but we don't know what, because if they don't tell us, we don't know what's going on, but we do feel it. And then we take it upon ourselves because we think it might have something to do with us, because that's why we are sensitive. And we've heard a lot that we are oversensitive, the word that we are not going to use anymore. No, we're highly sensitive, and it is okay. So one of the things that was hard for me, and I don't know how it was for you guys, I do see some comments, I will go over it in a minute, is to acknowledge that highly sensitivity and to be okay with that. And that also means to be okay with whatever is going on and to honor that. And that's where that self-gentleness comes in. So I teach self-gentleness. I will give you my definition in the case you've never heard of my work before, and that is radically accepting yourself as the most important person to consistently deserve your own gentleness, which means that you're kind and gentle and compassionate to yourself in any situation, in any circumstance, also when you fail, also when you feel that you're failing, also when you feel that you did something wrong, and also in the face of others who are expecting things of you that you cannot live up to without going over your own boundaries, without hurting yourself, or without not honoring yourself. So that is self-gentleness. It sounds easy to be gentle with yourself, but to do this on a consistent basis, on a radical basis, that is something else. And I think most of my lives are about that. I have a course in Dutch, a course in English on Insight Timer about self-gentleness. In my track list, you find a lot of self-gentleness practices. And as you see, there are going to be more lives about self-gentleness, because this is a topic that's really close to my heart. Why? Because self-gentleness for me is the rescue of living my good life, living a life with more ease, living a life with more gentleness for myself, but also for others. And it does take some work. And you might think, well, Femke teaches this. She is the master in self-gentleness. She's always self-gentle. Well, forget about it. I know the tools. I apply them. They work often. And sometimes also I see again, oh my God, I forgot to be self-gentle. The beauty is that it's a lifelong work in process. To become self-gentle is something that, it sticks with you for the rest of your life. Because with every new step, with every new encounter, with every new relationship, with every new job, with every new a friend or colleague situation, new house, whatever is going on, there are new challenges that we need to redefine what's and how we can be self-gentle. Being highly sensitive, which is something that is, I was working a lot with emotions. I was also teaching about how to deal with emotions, but realizing that I'm just a person who has a lot of sensitivity and a lot of feelings, and that it is okay to feel this, that I don't have to apologize for feeling things, and that I can acknowledge those, that has really shifted things for the better. But it's sometimes hard. So one of the things that is hard in that we can distinguish between feelings and emotions. Well, so in psychology, when you look at the literature, you see that there is a lot of overlap between what is a feeling, what is an emotion. But I will now rely on the more spiritual literature, who distinguishes between emotions and feelings as such. Feelings are those things that you are actually feeling right now in the moment in your body. So something happens, or you think something, or someone does something or says something, and you are having a feeling response. That can be something that feels pleasant, it can be something that feels unpleasant, but it's a bodily sensation. Remember, someone says something to you and it really makes you feel happy. Then how do you feel the happy? You feel it in your body, you feel a glow over your skin, or you feel your heart jump up, or you feel your skin tingle. Or someone says something that makes you sad, and then you feel this in your body. You might have a pit in your stomach, or you feel that tears are dropping from your eyes. You want to make a noise because you're crying. Things are like that. Those are feelings right in the moment, in a response to something that is happening either outside of you or that is happening within you. Now, when we acknowledge that these feelings are here, and yeah, when you're highly sensitive, someone can say something completely innocent, but it can hit you like it's a big thing, right? But that is then okay. The most important part in this is that you acknowledge that this is something from you. And that's hard. That this feeling response is actually something that is yours. And, others might be kind, others might not be kind. But in a sense, it doesn't matter so much for your response. Your response is yours, and you can take care of that. And then we get to the emotions. So in spiritual literature, emotions are very often seen as feelings of the past. Things that happened to you when you were a kid or a youngster, or maybe just yesterday. We store these things that happen to us, and when we don't process the feelings good, when we don't process the feelings right in the moment, like just what am I experiencing now? What am I feeling in my body? What is happening? Can I express whatever I'm feeling right now to another? Can I communicate about that? Can we have a talk about it? Can I be heard? Or can at least I hear myself about these feelings? If we don't do that, and you might recognize it, but we don't often do this, myself included, then we store these feelings in our bodies. And then any moment something happens that reminds us in any way of that old hurt, that old moment, all these feelings return to be processed now. But when we didn't process them then, and we don't process them now, because very often this is about things that happened before, and we've repeated this and we've repeated this, and we have stored these. I like to call these old wounds, old scars, childhood issues, traumatizing experiences. And I mean this in the smallest way and also in the biggest sense. These are then returning. And the beauty is, the very difficult beauty is, when we start to be able to process these emotions as feelings right now, without telling ourselves again the stories that we've been telling ourselves, whether consciously or not, about why we're feeling this. And we know to disconnect this from whatever triggered this within us. But we can just be with those feelings. Then we start to actually heal those wounds. But I will tell you, this is really, really hard. I find this also really, really hard. I'm now 51 years old, going to 52. And I've done a lot of work already on myself, really a lot of work, but still it's sometimes hard. And that's why I'm saying it's this lifelong work in progress process. Because it's like peeling an onion. You get deeper and deeper, and the issues that you might understand now because of experience, because of maybe therapy or speaking with friends or loved ones, that you start to understand what is going on. We even peel them off more and more, but they come up to heal. And I do believe in a spiritual sense that when something comes up right now, that you are ready to process it, even just a little bit. And for me, acknowledging that I am sensitive and that I'm not oversensitive, but just highly sensitive, really, really helped me to step into this new phase of dealing with those old wounds and those triggers. So that's basically my story in this. It's getting kind of personal today, right? I think I'm always kind of personal, but today, yeah, I'm also personal. But why not, right? Like I said, I might be teaching self-gentleness. I might even call myself a master of self-gentleness. That's not because I'm always self-gentle, but it is because I know that I can apply it. I have the consciousness to understand what is going on. And I have to trust most of the time that I will become self-gentle again. It might sometimes take a few hours. It even sometimes may take a few days, and even sometimes a few weeks to get self-gentleness back into my being. But that's okay. It's a lifelong work in progress process, and we have to be okay with that, right? What's the other option? Not be sensitive, push everything down, store everything in our body, get more emotional, and especially our interactions with whether those others are our colleagues or loved ones or family or friends or spouses, it will interfere in those interactions. One of the most important things that I find about self-gentleness is that when we become self-gentle, we also become gentler to others. Because we start to see ourselves more like human beings with our flaws, with our ambivalence, ambiguities, our problems, our trauma, our scars, our wounds. And we start to recognize that others also have this. And that gentleness is one way to deal with that. So, yeah. Is there anything else I want to say about that? Actually, I planned a little bit different story, but I now made it more personal, and I think that's okay. Bottom line is, it is okay to feel, whether you're sensitive, just human being, right? Or highly sensitive. It is okay to feel. It is important to learn to tune in with yourself, with your body, the signals your body is getting from your environment, from within. To tune in with your feelings, your emotions, whatever's going on, to acknowledge that when emotions are running high, that you're bringing these old feelings with you, that the situation right now is not just this, how infuriating or hurting or problematic a situation can be when you cannot distinguish between the big, big emotions that are there. You are bringing your old hurt with you. And then self-gentleness really comes into play. Because by blaming the other for whatever's going on with you, it might feel good. It might help you to get off some steam, but it doesn't heal your wounds because those old emotions are just stored back, and there's a little bit more stored on it, so next time it can be even bigger. Acknowledging that you are feeling something and communicating about what you are feeling, and communicating this to the other in the hope that they will communicate with you, but at least you are being gentle with yourself. That is a really great start.